I mean, when I was going, he was hard.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's stand for the pledge of allegiance. We'll call this meeting to order then. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Meeting of April 18th, 2022 is now in session. Jackie, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Hewland. Here. Parker.
Present.
Dalby.
Here.
Richardson.
Aye.
Schroeder.
Present.
Beach.
Here.
Mayor Erickson.
Before we go on, I would like to publicly say our thoughts and prayers are with the Erickson family. Mayor Erickson's father-in-law was killed in an accident on their farm last Friday, and that she will be out of town here for a few days. Anyway, so thoughts and prayers are with the family. We'll go on with approval of claims. Approval of the agenda, consent agenda. I know you got full claims, is right?
Full
Full
B,
item B.
please. Yeah.
Councilman Richardson.
Yes.
Public comment first, please.
Oh, sorry about that. Public comment. Anybody in the audience who wishes to speak, please come forward, state your name, address, and give you some time to talk. Or did you want to say anything at this point in time?
West Ashland here in Indianola. And I'm here as a member of the Indianola Sustainability Committee and wanted to give very briefly a little bit what that's about because I'm not sure some of you are familiar with it. And then just to tell you that we'll be back on May 5th with something more to talk with you about. So the committee started about 15 years ago under Jerry Kelly, who was mayor, and he was appointed a group to be on the committee. It's probably best known for holding what was an annual sustainability fair until COVID came along, but we're planning to have another sustainability fair a year from now, April 1st of 23. Our primary goals are to educate, inform, and advocate for clean, renewable energy, conserving resources, reducing waste, encouraging recycling, and promoting access to nature. One of the projects that we recently were part of, and we talked with the city council and got some support from, was the Grow Solar Warren County, which was a group buy project that lowered the cost of buying solar panels for a certain period of time, as long as people did it during that period, and resulted in a number of solar panels being built on residences, farm, and businesses. We have encouraged and are pleased with IMU's project for a solar field that my understanding is will be started this fall. And we understand that MEAN, M-E-A-N, the company which IMU has contract agreement with and gets our energy from, is working on their next 5-year integrated resource plan. The Sustainability Committee would like to have some input into that plan, which comes out April 19th, with only 30 days for public input. Because the Sustainability Committee is a city committee, we would like to have your support for giving IMU a statement regarding MEAN's integrated resource plan. All we can say now is that we'll be advocating for clean energy. We aren't sure what their plan will be. So we're hoping to come back to you on May 5th, asking for your support and input for the Sustainability Committee to speak to IMU regarding the MEAN integrated resource plan. I don't know if you have comments or questions.
I'll have Charlie, we'll get that on the agenda, so. And,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Margaret. Thank you.
Anyone else have any comments, public comments? Okay, now we'll move to the consent agenda.
I have a question.
Oh, go right ahead.
The sustainability committee is not a recognized city council committee, correct?
They're appointed by this, so their members, I believe, are, and you know more about this, I think they're appointed by the council, or at
Yep,
least
they're
confirmed
our
by the
council policy
council.
holder.
Okay. I thought my understanding was it was not an official. Okay. I mean, I guess although they could say something, but
Yeah, we
that's an
talked.
IMU thing, not a city.
No, sure, and that was why, so actually Al Ferris had come into my office a couple weeks ago, and we had talked through some of that stuff, and just thought, since it is a council appointed committee, that maybe just having council's blessing before they act on the city's behalf on
Okay.
comments would be appropriate, so.
Okay, all right.
We had just offered the suggestion for them to come tonight and just give you kind of a heads up that that'll be coming at your next meeting.
Sure.
And she said the window
I didn't
of
get
time
that.
was,
Could you try
what, 30
again?
days? So if they come to our meeting on May 5th, that still allows time?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so the 30-day window, and you said it was
May 5th.
April
Yes.
13th, and I think,
April 19th.
yeah, April 19th was the second council meeting in May. I don't think there would be enough time to hit that one. We had one, again, Al and I went through this about a week ago, and I don't have any notes on it, but we kind of put a timeline together, so.
Any other questions from council? Okay, third time's a charm. We're on to the consent agenda. We'll
Pull.
pull item B.
Thank you.
Any other items to pull? Have a motion to approve in a second.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion in a second. Charlie, would you kind of run through things real quickly here on the setting the dates and approvals?
Just hit a few highlights on the things here. First of all, there was 2 items on there that will call for public hearings at your next council meeting. There was a resolution on there from the Library Board of Trustees requesting the council take necessary actions for a new library building. There were also 2 pay applications for some of our larger infrastructure projects that are taking place. First one was for the wastewater treatment facility. This pay app does hit the milestone of 75% of construction completed for that project. And then there was also a pay app for the downtown reconstruction project that did include a change order for items that were all requested by staff. And then just a few other budgeted items. There was a purchase of 2 new police vehicles that was part of this current fiscal year budget. And then the 6th street sub area plan, which includes the areas where Warren County Secondary Roads facility is located, as well as the Indianola Public Works facility is located. But that was part of the fiscal year 23 budget.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Jackie, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Beach.
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Dalby,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Schroeder.
Aye.
Moving on then, I believe that our city treasurer is up. Oh,
Go back to, take a motion to approve claims.
Thank you. In a second.
Second.
Now we have a motion and a second, so. You got me so frustrated. here.
No, I-
Because
Stop
you want to
bugging that
move
guy
this
up
thing
there.
along, and I'm-
We only made 5 for you. comments.
Yeah, I know. We're working on 6. All right. Jackie, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Dalby,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Beach,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Recuse.
Parker.
Aye.
Now we'll have Mr. Shaw come up and do our treasurer's report. Thank you, John.
I was just thinking, Mayor Pro Tem, that we sent you up to Capitol and we thought maybe you'd get all this
You know,
procedural
yeah.
thing down, but it slips away, doesn't it?
It's a little rusty, that's right.
Mayor, council members, the report is for the month of March. And one of the things that we know will happen in April, a lot of property taxes will come in. They were paid by, or at least most of them were paid by March 31st, and they'll transfer them over to us in the month of April. I went back to comparing the report that's in front of you to last year's report, and it's pretty much similar. What I call the general funds, they were up about 450,000 over a year ago. It's pretty normal. And then under the local option sales tax, Jackie pointed this out to me, that the 287,000 represents 2 months. They hadn't gotten it the previous month, but pretty much on normal. It's just about, well, it is $8.3 million as of the end of March. Those items down in what I call the like downtown square capital projects and Hillcrest and K Street. And the ARPA funds make our balances a lot higher than they normally would be, but that's been for the last several months. Let's see, the other thing is, I think that we do have some $44,500,000 to account for. And we saw that the interest rate went from, it's up 70 basis points. So it went from 1.3% up to 8, not 1.3, 0.13, and it's now at 0.83. So what we're hearing on the news is interest rates are on the rise, and I think there apparently will be some more. All the other rates were similar, but we're up about $12 million over last year. But again, that goes back to some of those capital funds that we've got that were Square and Hillcrest, K Street. That would be my report, subject to any questions.
Any questions for treasurer? Okay.
Thank
hearing-
you.
yeah, Okay, hearing none, I would take a motion to accept and approve the mayor's or treasurer's report.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Jackie?
Councilmember Parker,
Aye.
Dalby,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Schroeder.
Aye.
Beach,
Aye.
Hewlin.
Aye.
And next is the EMS building report. Do we have anything on that? Do we need to approve?
Second.
Motion second. Any comments from anybody? Jackie?
Councilmember Dalby,
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Schroeder.
Aye.
Beach,
Aye.
Hewlin.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Community updates. Does anyone other than, I know the mayor had some things, but she did not give those to me, so. Anything else from anyone? Any updates on anything? All right, moving on to a proclamation from the office of the mayor for Arbor Day, whereas in 1872, Sterling Norton proposed to Nebraska Board of Agriculture a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed for the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cutting heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife, and whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products, and whereas trees in our community increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, and whereas trees are a source of joy and spiritual renewal, and whereas Indianola has been recognized as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation and desires to continue its tree planting ways, I now therefore, Steve Richardson, Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Indianola, do hereby proclaim April 29th, 2022 as Arbor Day. In the City of Indianola, and I urge all citizens to support care of our trees and woodlands and to support our community's forestry program. And further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden hearts and promote the well-being of present and future generations dated this 18th day, April 2022. Okay. Full business. Public consideration, square reconstruction project. Charlie, you want to talk about this a little bit?
Jackie, just move these slides here really quick because the clicker is not functioning properly. And if it doesn't work, that's fine too.
I'm gonna try it now.
There we go. Okay, I know as some of the council members may recall, last year we had worked with Warren County on getting a few easements and some right of way in the heart of our downtown here as part of the downtown reconstruction project. If you can see on the screen there above, don't pay attention to the blue line. This is kind of an old graphic. It's changed a little bit, but that pinkish line that you can see throughout there is the existing right of way line that is currently within the square. You can see for the most part throughout that area that is on the street side of the sidewalk, which is very atypical of anything that we normally do in a city where you typically have that right of way line on the other side of the sidewalk. So we had begun working with Warren County last year, mainly because there are some improvements that are going on with this project that the city wants to maintain long term. And we want those located in our project. So we did attempt to get some right away from the county, just to make those lines match up a little bit more uniformly with what we have in other parts of the city. Last week, the county did officially sign all of their documents to transfer that right away to us. So we were simply asking the council on this to accept that right away so we can get that filed. The second thing we had from the county was a few electrical easements. You can't really see them here. I can point on the screen. There's a square up here and a square down here where there is some electrical equipment within the square that we are placing event power. We have some transformers that we're putting up there for both the courthouse and for some of the stuff within the square. That's normal progress that or normal process that we do with any of our electrical equipment is just to have those have easements underneath them, so we are able to maintain those going forward. So the county also did dedicate that easement to the city, and we are just accepting that easement to the city. So any questions on those two, be happy to answer them.
Any questions, Charlie?
Yeah.
I would take a motion accepting the electrical easement.
So moved. Second.
Motion and seconds been made. Jackie, call the roll.
Councilmember Dalby,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Beach.
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
We're going to move on to a public hearing. I need to have a motion to move into a public hearing.
Move to, or motion to move into public hearing.
Second.
A motion and second. Jackie?
Councilmember Beach.
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Dalby,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Schroeder.
Aye.
Okay, we are in a public hearing on the transfer of the storm sewer easement to Warren County. Charlie, why don't you give us some background and then we'll move into the public.
Very similar to the last two, except this is an easement that we are transferring to Warren County rather than the opposite. On the south side of the square, so what happened was when the county put in their new justice center, they did put in some storm sewer pipes to control stormwater runoff within their property, some underground storage water tanks that they have down there too. On the south side of the square, there is a few of those pipes that will actually now fall within the right of way of the city now that we've accepted that. So we are simply giving the county an easement to be able to go in and maintain those stormwater pipes if anything happens. Just so council is aware, on the south side of the square, those stormwater pipes are all underneath the sidewalk. So anything that might need to be done to those in the future would have a sidewalk disruption on the county side, but they would be taking care of that. So.
This is a public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience wishes to come and speak? If so, please come forward, state your name and address. Seeing none.
A motion to go out of the public hearing.
Second.
Motion and second to go out of public hearing. Jackie, please call the roll.
Councilmember Dalby,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Beach,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Resolution approving a transfer of the storm sewer easement to Warren County. I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second. Motion and second's been made. Clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Parker,
Aye.
Dalby,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Schroeder.
Aye.
Beach.
Aye.
Hewlin.
Aye.
Motion's carried. Okay, on to new business. Charlie, item number 1, resolution approving a preliminary plat for Ashton Park Plats 8, 9, and 10.
Yeah, so council may recall, well, actually, we did a motion first, right? So
I'll make a motion to approve
Yeah, sorry about
the
that.
preliminary plat approval of 76 lot residential subdivision.
Second.
Motion second. Clerk, call the roll, please.
no,
Sure.
hold on really quick. Yep. Okay, so you'll see on the screen here above shows the area that we're looking at. This is just to the east of the existing Ashton Park development. The developer is requesting approval for a 76 lot residential subdivision. They are noting within their plans that this would be a 3-phase development. However, kind of depending on how things go with the economy, they could put all of the improvements in 1 phase rather than 3, but that is to be determined at this point. But again, 76 residential lots, it would include 3 outlots that'll be used for stormwater management within the site, and 6 street lots, which would ultimately be ultimately dedicated to the city. The development does provide for a gross density of about 2.47 units per acre and a net density of about 4.42 units per acre. The difference between gross density and net density is just that net discounts any unusable land. So that area for roads, the area for the stormwater features and stuff like that is taken out of it. So preliminary plat was included with your packet, so you'll see kind of how that street layout and lot layout is going in there. And if there's any questions beyond that, I'd be happy to answer them.
Charlie, you and I talked today a little bit about the elevations there on the top portion of that. It includes outlot W and outlot X. My question to Charlie this morning was that I think the elevation was about 922 is what you said, Charlie, if I'm not mistaken.
I'd have to pull it back up here again, yeah.
And we're at about 940 at the intersection, which would be North 21st Street.
Yeah, so it was up in this area here where that drainage swale is coming through there, but really the question was there was about a 10-foot fall into that drainage swale and then a 10-foot climb back up from there, so.
And then to the intersection of 221st there
Yeah,
as
which was
well.
over this
Yeah, it's
area.
about 22 feet. I was asking about the percentage of grade there. So it's sure it's okay.
Yep, and just so everybody's aware, anything that we normally do on these plats, we'll have AP as our engineer looks over a lot of the street things. We have stormwater engineers from Center and Associates look over all the stormwater features. IMU is heavily involved in it. Rick with wastewater is involved in it, but I know this one in particular, we probably spent a good 4 months reviewing between revisions that they submitted and getting to a point where we can bring it forward now. So
Okay.
yeah, that stuff has all been looked at.
Yep.
So when you say low to medium density, can you give, what's an approximation of the width of the lots?
I think, put it up here really quick. Minimum is 60 feet, I think, on this one. I know the engineer is also on here too, so Melissa, if you're able to answer that faster than I could find it, feel free to jump in.
These are minimum, isn't it?
Yes. I think these are all just a tad bigger than that even. Some 60 up, so there's a few
I
that-
believe these are 65-foot lots.
There you go, just as I found it. And they're not all uniform. I mean, depending on where you're at, I can see some in here that are, up to 81, 76, 79, 64. But I think the smallest she's saying is it gets down to 65 feet.
There's slab homes in this one.
No, well, Jerry's Homes, I don't believe has a model, but Jerry's Homes is the developer, so.
Looks like, what, 44 row homes, 35 Crestmore units.
You're looking at what they did, and that was included in the packet, is they're actually showing once you get north of here between where this boundary is and Iowa Avenue on what a concept could look like in the future out there. That's not this portion that you're looking at right now. So just typically with developers, what we'll do is we kind of want to get a good idea of, okay, you've got this laid out where the roads are going to go. What are your thoughts moving forward on how we make connections throughout the other portions of the city? So Jerry's Homes was just kind enough to include kind of what they look at and kind of concepted out what they would look like on the piece of ground that they purchased to the north. So this one all includes just single family.
Okay.
None of the townhome models that they're looking at are included within this
I was
plat.
confused by that too, because it says row homes.
Yep, sorry, I should have
Smaller
clarified that.
with
Okay, folks, any questions? Okay, there was a motion to approve this plat. Jackie, call roll.
Councilmember Dalby,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Beach.
Aye.
Hewlin.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Motion to approve preliminary plat for Prairie Glen 4. Motion to do that, please.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, comments, questions?
I'll really quick jump in. This one's just a tad northwest of the one that you looked at, the fourth addition to the Prairie Glen subdivision shown in the red rectangle there and what they're looking at for a lot layout here. So you'll see a few cul-de-sacs in this one here. We've looked at a few concepts. So first, let me start with that cul-de-sac that is stubbed into the west. Reason there's a cul-de-sac there is because there is a stormwater detention basin that is pretty deep through here. So they're not able to get that road through there because of that. We did look at a concept on that cul-de-sac on the north to stub that road into that property there, but just with the land that was available, it did create for some irregular lots throughout there that we were going to have to do some waivers on. And as we looked at some numbers on what that may provide to the property owner to the north, it really didn't pan out or make much sense. So can tell you from our standpoint, we have a fire chief that's sitting over here as well as a public works director who both hate cul-de-sacs. So anytime we can discourage them, we will, but there are some situations where they are necessary just because of what we have left over with land or what we're looking at as far as topographical features on the plat. So anyways, this one is a 29 lot residential subdivision. The gross density is 2.72 units per acre with a net density of 3.41 units per acre. So any other questions, would be happy to answer them.
Sure. Charlie, what's the opening width of those cul-de-sacs?
You're talking right away or the pavement width?
Actual pavement width?
Are you looking at the radius on the cul-de-sac or?
Well, the actual opening width into the cul-de-sac. Does that make any sense?
Could be the width of this.
Or it's
22
coming
feet.
in, so the width coming in there, those are all, I believe, 25-foot wide roads
Right.
through there. So, and then the cul-de-sac radius, which is what we'll normally look at. Let me take a look at it.
45 feet.
Is it 45?
Yeah, 45.
Yep.
55.
So 90 feet around, which is our requirement in our subdivision code.
Chief, can you get a truck turned around in that distance? If you have a car parked there, it's going to be a problem.
Right.
Shouldn't be, yes, that's correct.
Well, for my time on school board, the bus drivers don't like it either. So there's
Yeah.
plenty of people lined up that
Yeah.
do not like those.
Any slab homes in this one?
Again, this is, well, in this one, so the developer in this one, and I don't know what their ultimate plan would be, but it is diligent development and through some of the Prairie Land subdivisions, they have sold off lots to be developed. Way Journey, for example, they did sell off lots to them originally. So I don't think they necessarily have a model with their company at all, but who they sell that to, they could have that in there. So we don't necessarily know builders yet on all of them.
Other questions? Or we call the roll?
Councilmember Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Dalby,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye, sorry.
Speech,
And then I need a motion to approve final plat for Deer Run Plat 8
So moved as read.
Second.
and discussion. Charlie?
Yeah, really quick, this is a final plat, 3-lot commercial subdivision. There was not a preliminary plat done with this particular one, since there is not any public infrastructure that is being put in, just a mere putting or placing of lots on some existing infrastructure. So this one is got property that is zoned partially in the C2 commercial zoning district, but there are some of it within the PUD for the Deer Run Golf Course, just a little sliver of ground there on the south side of this development. And let me pull this up here so you can see the lot layout. When we've looked at the PUD for the Deer Run Golf Course, the PUD does say that the land within the PUD on the golf course should all be used for a golf course. However, if I go back to this on the area that they are platting out within the red there, none of that land is currently used as part of the golf course. And it's just traditionally, I believe, been a hayfield that the previous property owner has used on this property. So as far as the PUD, we don't see any reason to deny based off that, again, because none of the PUD ground that's within this plat was used for the golf course. So
So the units that are right, just that little stretch there,
yes,
they've obviously been notified.
Yes.
You didn't hear any
yep,
any
nope.
concerns from them.
No, and there was one letter I know that was in your packet of a concern of somebody that
Oh, I
just
missed that.
mentioned that they wanted to keep it as a golf course. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But no, we normally do send out letters before the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to property owners within 200 feet. By code, we're required to do it 10 days ahead of time. We typically do it about 12 to 15 days ahead of time.
Charlie, there was somewhere in here I was reading that there was a parcel that was it given back as right away? Or
Yep.
Is that? okay?
So when the highway project got done on 92, there was the DOT got a lot of the right of way through there by easement, and we are just simply asking for that to be deeded to the city, that easement, rather than have it being held by easement. It's just a lot cleaner for us to work through on a city standpoint.
And zoning for this land would be.
It's C2 commercial for the most part. So And the developer's aware, anything that they do, if they start selling lots off to anybody who wants to develop commercially, we're gonna have to look at rezoning to get those uniform boundaries for each lot, so.
And C2 includes just roughly,
Really any commercial use that's more highway oriented. It's a highway oriented commercial zoning district, so gas stations, restaurants, all like stuff like that.
yeah, just want to make sure that's publicly stated. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Jackie, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Dalby,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Beach,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Motion carries. Other business? Charlie, have anything to report or wish to report?
Really quick, I know council had a few items that I had emailed after the last meeting, just with some dates coming up. There is the Iowa League Municipal Leadership Academy Workshop for Economic Development, Community Betterment, and Acting Strategically. That is, I believe, this Saturday in Johnston. So if anybody wants to attend that, do let us know and we'll get you signed up. The HR Green meeting for the wastewater treatment plant that we've talked about a few times and probably rescheduled at least a half a dozen times now. We do have that slated for May 25th in Johnston, so please note that. And then the Iowa State University Extension is also offering an introduction to planning and zoning workshop that is scheduled for Tuesday, May 31st in Johnston. So if anybody wants to attend that, let me know. We'll get you signed up.
I know it's a ways out, but I just was noticing the League of Cities state conference is in Waterloo on the 28th and 29th, I believe, September. So,
Okay.
yeah, so make sure we get that on the calendar. Anybody wants to attend that as well.
Yeah, those leadership, those different top things they do in Johnson are really good. So if you get a chance to try to attend those, they do cover a lot of good stuff, so.
Any other council comments? See? We can do this.
Don't ruin it,
I'm
John.
proud of it. This is awesome.
You told me I was gonna be in handcuffs if I didn't do that.
Wrap it up, folks.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Council meeting is adjourned. We'll move into study session. We'll give about 5 minutes here and then we'll. See, we did it for you.
Feel right. So. Find that out.
I know.
I did. I skipped a lot. Tried to move along.
Well, I missed the comment.
It's just serious.
Yeah.
Surgery.
Yeah.
Not like she's gonna die.
on our facility planning process. So Charlie, you want to take the lead on that?
Yes, appreciate it. So just want to give everybody kind of a quick rundown of some of the items that the city has been working on for the last 4 years regarding our building projects. So I'm going to kind of start out this presentation. I'm going to hand it off to the user groups, Michelle with the library, Greg as the fire chief, and then Brian as the interim police chief are going to also help me out here this evening. So going through a timeline quick, some of you may recall back in 2018, we did a staffing study for both police and fire, which noted that we needed more police officers and fire department officials within those departments. However, we're sitting in a building with those individuals that was pretty much maxed out at that point. So we needed to look at what are we going to do with these buildings and how can we get more personnel within these departments, within these buildings. So we began that planning process. We did hire a formation group at that time to conduct an assessment on this building. And that study was completed and reported to the council in fall of 2018. Fast forwarding to the spring of 2019, council did renew its commitment to moving forward with this project in May. And in July, we looked at all of the city-owned buildings and assessed them to accommodate the city administration, because as we're looking at this, within this building, we also have a component of city administration that's kind of intermingled in between the two departments. And if we are going to grow both police and fire within this building, do we need to find another location for city administration?
Sorry, Charlie, real quick. One other thing to note too is that in that planning process, we already done a couple of projects inside this building.
Yes.
Because of staff. And we took the area when you first come into City Hall, back by there was offices and cubicles. That's not where fire and EMS. They got space to go in and actually type in the reports and deal with that. And then we also gained some more space too in and around the fire area for sleeping quarters and stuff like that. So we've already done a few things, but again, we're putting Band-Aids on a really broken thing. But anyway,
No, thanks for mentioning that too. So, and then in 2019, in September and October, we did recommend moving city administration to the library site. That was ultimately what came on. We looked at what it would take to keep them in this building, all the scenarios to keep them in this building and the cost. Looked at some of the other locations that we have available throughout the city and where they could possibly move into. But ultimately, the council at that point did make the recommendation to move forward with city administration on the library site. So then in 2020, obviously, that was when COVID hit. So there's a big lapse in time there because we did put a pause on this project through that to kind of see how the city was going to get through some of the COVID-19 pandemic. But then in July, we did put together initial timeline, costs, and concepts developed. In September, council did approve an RFP for architectural pre-design on these buildings. And in December, we did hire OPN to conduct the pre-design process. OPN hit the ground running in early 2021. They did a facility walkthrough and then kicked off the steering committee. We did some visioning sessions with the users and the steering committee, as well as some community surveys. We held bi-weekly user meetings with the departments to kind of go through some concepts and get an idea what they really needed within those buildings. In May, we offered public facility tours, did pre-design completion, and then in September of 2021, the steering committee was updated on the progress we've made, and that is essentially where this project has stalled to date now, and we're bringing it now forward to the council. And just so the public is aware, the council has been given a presentation in 2 separate groups here recently, just to kind of update them more in depth on this entire process. So in the city hall assessment, what we looked at was, again, assessing this building to what it actually was being used for. So you can see on here, on this area here on the left of the screen, will show the areas in red on that pie chart that shows the assets within our building that are beyond 100% life expectancy. In the yellow, that shows between 80 and 100%. In green is below 80% life expectancy. So this was on the city hall building, and please note that these are 2018 numbers. So these numbers are about 4 years old now. We would estimate that red is probably fully encompassing both the red and yellow areas there. That yellow area has probably moved into the green, and that green area is probably just about 25% or less of that pie chart now as we've moved through these buildings for another 4 years.
Charlie or somebody, can you refresh memories here when the original footprint of this building was put up?
Do you guys have, I know, yeah, I'm going to look at it.
63?
I was going to say, so there, I know there was 2 additions to the original building that were put on there. I don't have the years exactly on them, but I know The original building, I believe, was kind of in the middle, and then we did an addition to the south and then another addition to the north at some point. I just don't have the years exactly on those.
Yeah, the original building would be where you come in this door and that portion there.
And the fire bays and all of that.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I think, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't the first edition, this one here in the 70s, if I'm not mistaken, late 70s, early 80s, and then the last one was in 90, 89, 90, something like that.
And then the last was a remodel of the, you had the locker rooms downstairs. That was
Right.
your last.
So we're looking at a building that's be 50 years old, the original building portion 50 years old as next year, and the other portions are moving on to a 40 plus this portion here. Thank you.
Hello, Michelle Patrick, Director of the Public Library. We do have most of the library board with us here tonight. In the fall of 2021, the library did an assessment of their building. You see a picture here of folks trying to use the computer while there is a leak from the skylight. And the building assessment was just to help us see what the pieces of the building are that we needed to do updates or replace and help come up with a timeline. And I know that all of you have received that report. The building assessment did confirm what we already knew was wrong with the building, and then to find additional pieces of it. And the total cost in today's dollars would be just a little over $1 million into the library. And it is, I think, important to note that that would repair what is currently there. It would repair existing structures. It would not add anything new to the library in terms of, it wouldn't improve services. It wouldn't, unless you could use a computer without being dripped on, but it doesn't add anything. That is what it would cost to maintain our current structure.
So we did, as part of this process with OPN Information Group, did a program verification. These numbers aren't necessarily meant to be seen up here, just to show you that we have looked at everything that we need from the city hall, the library, and the public safety side of things to make a new building work. So on the left-hand side of the screen there, you'll see the numbers in blue. Those are all police user space numbers. The numbers in red are for the fire department, and the numbers, or excuse me, the columns there, or the rows in purple, are kind of the joint space that those two buildings would use. On the right-hand side, you'll see the numbers or the rows in purple there are the library. The rows in yellow are the city hall portion, and then green will show you the shared spaces that those two buildings would be using. Again, not meant to see these numbers, but just show you we have done all of the work to find out exactly what we need as far as space for all of this at full staff. So again, we mentioned OPN came on board in 2021. We started a pretty lengthy process with them to go over a lot of this stuff and verify it. We used a steering committee that was made up of the city manager, formation group, the OPN, library board, and city council. We had a user group because, again, they wanted to really engage who the users were. So we had user groups from public safety, library, and city administration. We sat through various meetings with them just to verify everything was working how we would envision it. And then we engaged the community. We had surveys, we had open houses, we had virtual tools, and we had an online FAQ. All of those processes led to a shared vision, which we'll share with you here now. So I'm gonna hand it off to public safety, and they're gonna go through their portion of the building.
Brian Scher, interim police chief. As Charlie mentioned, user groups and surveys were used along with Chief Chi and myself attending bi-weekly meetings with OPN and Formation Group. This is probably not the right time for it, but OPN and Formation Group has been wonderful to work with. Any concerns we had, any changes that needed changed, it was done. Next meeting, it was up, it was on the screen and ready to be discussed. So I just want to get that in here right now. This concept floor plan meets functionality and space needs for both the fire and the police department. This is not a final design. This is the concept that we came up with along with OPN Information Group for functionality and for our space needs, not just for today, but for 15, 20 years down the road.
And now I want to go back real quick to what was already brought up on some of the changes that the formation group did. The fire department did not have sleeping quarters for female until the formation group came in. We have 7 females on the department. now that becomes an issue, especially for me. But it's, yeah, that was one of the things that we really need to look at. And that was one of the things we looked at here for providing the appropriate quarters. And if you do look at this drawing or this concept, you'll notice that all of our apparatus that we currently house fit in to the bays. We're not running across the street to the next building, or we're not driving over behind Arby's to get equipment or apparatus. That's huge. And public safety is life safety. Seconds count. When we're driving or running across the street, that's a huge issue.
I'll just cover this really quick, and these are just a few of the concepts that we have on both on the public safety building. So the one on the left kind of shows what those fire bays would look like going into that, and then the one on the right just kind of shows the corner of the building that would be utilized by police.
Charlie, can you go over, I know we covered it in our smaller presentations, but a little bit the concept of building around the current building so that fire is not displaced?
Yeah, so really quick, and if you, the image here that's on the screen will show Salem there on the bottom of the screen. So the property is facing north with Ashland on top, and then Jefferson would be on the right-hand side. So if you can envision kind of where the current city hall sits in there, for the most part, we'd be able to kind of still utilize that building while this one is being constructed around it. There would have to be some phasing done on that, and then some demo that would take place throughout that process. But that is one thing that we did look at, because we can't completely disrupt those services. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, I just, for people watching,
Yep.
I think that's, that's great. We don't have to displace them and they can stay where they are.
All equipment then will be here on site, including police vehicles.
That's the thing I think it's important for people to know. I don't think many have any idea that our safety is at risk because of those things.
And they've got some pictures here, I think, coming up in the presentation that show what those buildings, where they're located, what they look like, and all of that. So we'll kind of go over that here in a little bit.
Is that, so can you go back to that rendering of the complex? So
Yes.
is it 2-story for the entire building, or?
Yes. Correct. We have the entire portion of that.
Well, where the bays are, that's tall enough for 2 stories, is that right? But it actually isn't a story over the bays.
Yeah. Yep.
There is or isn't?
Not on top of the bays. There's not. No.
You
Yeah.
have
It's
to have,
just
you
tall
have to have,
ceiling
you have
in
to have
there.
an
Yeah.
exhaust in a lot of.
Yeah.
versions there.
And again, these are, and I just want to keep pointing this out. This is all very conceptual at this point too. I mean, a lot of this stuff could change between now and if anything does ever happen. But yeah, that's kind of what I think the floor plan here will show you, that because on that second level where those fire bays are, we're showing that it is not usable space right there. Right. Michelle's going to take this one.
No, I want to follow that with your question. And they said not usable space, but it is, because that's where there will be equipment, whether it's exhaust from the equipment that's runs out of there, and water supply to fill the apparatus will come off of that high bay. And that's all done. And there also will be some type of air filtration systems in there.
You'll fill up your apparatus in place.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is a concept of the library city hall. It is a 2-story building. The purple is the library's operation and stacks. As we've mentioned, this is really a concept. So, things are going to move around. But the important piece of this, I think, in the library, not only is there room for the collections, but it does provide that space for everyone. So right now we have a lot of competing elements of the library. For example, the teen room is in the old reference room, and the reference material was taken away, but we still have our archives. So we have the archives, we have the teens in the same space, and I could tell you just genealogists and middle schoolers are not a good combination. This would provide everybody with their own space. So children, they are here and they are over by the storytime room. And what's great about that, parents, you keep track of their children. We know who's ever in that space is supposed to be in that space. Nobody's there that shouldn't be. They're close. There's a bathroom there. And also the noise is contained. Same with the teens. They have their own space, a safe space. It's supervised. We do have a lot of teens looking for somewhere to hang out after the library, a place they can go. They're not going to bother people. People aren't going to complain because they're all contained. Then the adult section, we have places for people, some social spaces. You want to read the paper and just kind of chit chat. There's spaces for those. The materials, quiet spaces, working spaces, study rooms. We know there's a lot of people who want to work from home. All of those pieces are incorporated into that, the purple. The green on the first page, so we have the orange, that's City Hall. So that is their offices, their workspaces that provides for them today, plus room to grow, which we all know is important. Those green sections, that's the shared space. So we know that both City Hall and the library need meeting rooms. So those are a variety of different meeting rooms. The council chambers, very big program room and some other rooms. And all of those would be very flexible. We'd want those rooms to be able to be opened up for big programs or divided up for smaller groups as needed. We do know there is a very big need for meeting spaces in this community, and this would not only provide the library program space and City Hall meeting space, but for the community. Even some opportunities there, and the one room, it could be rented out, graduations, birthday parties. We know there's a need for that kind of space too. So a lot of space. There is also a shared lobby. So this part, the shared lobby has a real potential, I think. We know that the library is the busiest city-owned building. Our door count, depending on whether we're in a pandemic or not, is anywhere from 40 to 55,000 people coming into the library. Obviously, those are repeat people, but we're still talking about thousands of people coming into a space that is the library and City Hall. So a lot of opportunity for city manager, city officials to interact with different people, because we do know the library brings in all ages and people from all of our neighborhoods. So a real chance for interaction. Also a great chance for the city to be in showcasing information. So you have all of these people coming in. This is a great space to be getting public input and all of that kind of stuff. So a real potential there in the shared. This would be still on the library's existing lot on the north side. It's very important, we felt, to keep the library and City Hall central to the community. It also, we want people to be able to bike there, to walk there, and then of course right near downtown. The other piece that I think is very, very interesting about this concept is it will present a very different image of Indianola to people coming to City Hall. So rather than walking into sort of a stale beige municipal building, people coming to meet with Charlie about developments or meeting with the city manager, they're going to walk into a space that is full of people, full of young families, lots of energy. And I think it's really going to help us showcase that this is a great place to live. This is a great place to raise your family. And this, again, is just a concept, but pretty exciting concept, I think.
Question. Can I ask a question about,
Yes.
Are the windows a special type of window? I know like light and books, and sometimes they've said sunlight isn't good for books. So is there some sort of protection on it, or you're the
I
expert?
can't tell you from the library standpoint, because we're not necessarily an archival library. We do have archives, and those are located in a place that would be away. We do have some pretty fantastic archives. Those are in protected space. In terms of the public built, the shelf life of most of our books are just a few years. So it's all good on that. Thank you.
So wrapping everything up, and I think one of the questions we always get is kind of what are we looking at from a financial standpoint on this building here? So there was an
Charlie, can I just stop you a second? Can you back up one slide a minute here and another slide, one more? Okay, so the questions I've had on this library City Hall is parking. And I know some comment was made about using the church parking lot. I was there on Monday night. That parking lot was full on Monday. So question about parking and where we plan on parking folks. I know you made a comment, Charlie, that there's more parking there than there is here, but I guess I need to know where that is so I can explain it.
Sure, give me 1 second here because there was from last week with those numbers in, and I just have to find it here. No, you're fine. No problem at all. So currently we run what we have for parking on, so on this city hall site where we have city hall and public safety, there's 52 available parking spots total. The library currently has 23, so a total of 75 between those two buildings, but 52 and 23 just for reference. On the new ones that we've laid out so far, and obviously, again, this is all conceptual, so these are all open to change at some point, but the fire department would have 14, the police department would have 22, and then there would be 16 for the public that would be included in on that. So that's a total of 52 spaces for the public, yes, for the public safety side. And then if the combined city hall, we have outlined 40 parking spots that would be in that between some additional space on the side there. We'd also pull the curb line back and put some on-street parking in there, just have some more availability on that as well. So
can you kind of show that or tell me where that would be on that?
well, so you're talking, again, we have these curb lines right here. You can kind of see, we pulled that back a little here and have some parallel parking spots throughout here,
I can't see that
throughout
there,
that
so-
as well too. Yep.
Okay.
So again, when you add those two, we're looking at 92 total spaces between the two, where right now we have 75.
Okay, but at that facility, you're going to increase the number by,
Yeah, so we're going from the library right now, having 23 would be at 40.
okay.
But then
so
we'd
you're
also bring
70.
City Hall into that
Okay.
as well.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we have, we floated some ideas around that because we kind of have pointed to that site, and we know that there's some options around there. I mean, we've got a few public parking lots that are within a block of here, and we also have that church parking lot there as well too, that we figured we could possibly utilize with a conversation with that church. So.
Yeah, I'm just concerned on a Monday night. So how many people from city staff will be occupying, city and library staff will be occupying that building on a regular basis?
That's a great question. I'd have to kind of run that total. I know we have, how many do you have normally working?
Overtime.
Yeah,
Probably 7 or 8. I think, I can't speak for City Hall, but certainly for library employees, they would be parking not in the prime spots, they would be in public.
yeah, 100%. Yeah. I'm
do
trying to
that
think.
for the
So
public.
you have 7 and we
At
have,
one time,
yeah.
Mhm.
So we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, yeah. Yep. So, yeah. I'd say with full staff, we're probably looking at about 20 staff members, but
Okay. So about, unless, and you'd encourage staff to park off site, as I was
100%, yeah.
suggesting. That's just been a concern that's been thrown at me, so thank you. I just, those numbers I can put back to people.
okay, nope, not a problem at all. So I wanted to go back to the financial estimates that we put together. So first of all, we used a 2020 estimate that we put together, which showed the two buildings in total being about $44.6 million in construction cost. Obviously, we're past 2020 and construction costs are escalating, it seems like every single day. So looking at what we are currently budgeting for the 2021 numbers with a 2023 construction project, we look at the public safety building being about $25.5 million. The library municipal building being about $20.5 million for a total of just over $46 million on that one. If we escalate that each year with a 4.5% escalation, and we go up to 2026, we're increasing that to about $51.9 million for those two projects. So wanted to point that out just because obviously we're in a thing where construction does not get cheaper by any means, and those numbers are increasing each year. So if we were to move forward with these projects at this point, again, we look at, we're here in 2022 currently doing some marketing leading up to a possible bond referendum. We have pinpointed a bond referendum date of September of this year. I believe it's September 13th is what that date would be. If we hit that date, if we were successful in a bond referendum, then we start looking at how everything plays out after that. We look at the two buildings being designed towards the tail end of 2022 and through most of the spring and summer of 2023 to where we then get to a bid date on the two projects. And if we're successful in getting, or if we get a successful bid on those, then we start construction on both of them in late 23
And we're looking at about a 2-year construction timeframe where we're ending both of those in 2025. Now, again, that's best case scenario on all of this. That's putting the 2 building projects on there together, assuming we're successful along all the steps along the way. But just kind of wanted to show council how that can work and what we're looking at for an estimated timeline if we did hit all of those milestones.
So your numbers was a start of 2023 was 25.5 and 20.5.
Yep, this is 2021 numbers assuming a 23 construction project. So we're
Okay.
using 23 numbers. But we estimated
But on
those
that
last year.
timeline you just showed, we wouldn't be starting until,
2023, late 23 is when we
Late
bid it out. So
23.
that's when we lock those prices in.
I got you. Just trying to follow your time.
So again, moving forward from this date, obviously, we're in April of 2022 here. We're having this work session with you. We are working on marketing and those items that we'd be going forward. At this point, we would be asking the council at your next meeting. I think we're going to come forward and provide a little bit more in-depth detail on the financial analysis of how all of this would work prior to you then approving to put this on for a bond referendum in September. At which point we would then launch communications and open houses and start engaging with community advocates along the way. Use those next 3 months for kind of a public communication and working through all of those aspects on there, leading up to a possible election day there on September 13th. And we wanted to end this just with okay, why now? Why are we doing this now? Obviously, we've been working on this for 4 years, and I know some of you are new, but why is this really necessary? We've got a few pictures we'll show you here, and I just wanted to start with this one from City Hall and kind of deepen, and Michelle kind of talked a little bit about this, but when we bring people into City Hall, I mean, my job, we're obviously bringing developers, possible people who want to move their businesses here, sometimes on a daily basis, but at least a couple times a week, we have people coming in. We have 3 doors into this building that can, first of all, create a lot of confusion amongst members of the public. I mean, I can sit up in my office before a council meeting and feel like we're trying to get people all down into this room because they don't know what door to come into. We deal with that on a daily basis here at City Hall. Anytime people are trying to come in, meetings on the south end of the building with me, they're coming in on the north building. We're having staff move them around, get them to the right places. But this picture in particular, and you can't really see it here with this, but you walk in this door right here, you're walking in right next to kind of our trash enclosure within City Hall that is usually pretty full just because we have the one dumpster in there and we have a lot of recycling bins in there. But not necessarily a nice kind of front door into City Hall in that respect. But we're dealing with an old building. And like I said, we have limited room for conference with these individuals that are coming in. If we're having a pre-development meeting where we have more than 2 people from any development group coming in to ask us questions, we're usually asking Doug if we can use the activity center, possibly moving people in here and moving all these tables around just so we can get enough people in there. So we're maxed out on space in a lot of that respect. And again, this is kind of what people see when they come into City Hall. It's their first impression of, you know, I'm about to invest some money into Indianola, but this is what I see when I first walk in. So let everybody else kind of talk about their use spaces as well, and then we'll answer any questions when we're done. So.
Couple pictures from the library. This is our main entrance. Doesn't that look like a fun place to be? And then this is one of our librarians. It's a little hard to see, but she's back there in her little cubicle. We don't have storage. They didn't build in storage with the library. So basically storage is in your cubicle. So that is her workspace. So why the library? I think it's important to note that unfortunately we don't have the choice of keeping things the way they are. We're either going to have to invest money in the library that we have right now, or we're going to have to move forward with the building on it. But there's not an option that doesn't involve an investment of some kind with the library. And even if we pour $1 million into this building, it doesn't fix the problem, which is that Indianola has outgrown its library. We are tiny. I could give you a stack of statistics on how we compare to our peers. We are very, very small. I noticed today when I was looking at statistics that the town of Knoxville, lovely town, is almost exactly half our population. If you move to Knoxville tomorrow, you would have more space, you'd have more books, you'd have more program space, you'd have more meeting rooms. Even at half our size, they offer their community more, and they're not an unusual size. And part of that is it's not just that we're at capacity and we can't make things work, but we can't accommodate everyone. in terms of the different groups that come in. A couple weeks ago, we had a kids event and we had more than expected. And the children and their families took over every inch of the library. They took over the teen space, they took over the meeting rooms, they filled it. You couldn't move in that room. Don't listen to this fire chief, but we were packed. I think when you're this tall, it's like half a person per capacity, right? But, we had people coming in who weren't children or weren't parents. You couldn't use the computers, you couldn't read the newspaper. If you got to the books, you couldn't get to the desk to get them the books. And so everyone, by having an event for kids, we chased everybody else away and they couldn't use the library. And it's just, honestly, it's not going to get any better. We're just, it's getting, we're falling farther and farther and farther behind our peers. I was in our archives and I ran across an article from 1997, and that is in newspaper article, and they were talking about the need to expand the library. And they were making plans. How are we going to expand the library? So here we are 24 years later. We haven't done anything about it. We're still talking about it. And it's going to exist until we at some point fix it. So I'm here talking about the library space problem. I'll be here next year and the year after and the year after, and you hear from me every year until I retire, that at some point we're going to have to address the library's space issues.
So if you look here, the building on the right, and that's actually shared by both fire and police. We've got, and it's full. We have to park a trailer. That's our fire trailer. That's what we use for public education. That's outside of that building. I've been in the fire service for, well, it'll be 38 years now. And I've worked in a lot of old stations. Some of the conditions here are not only inefficient, but they definitely need to be replaced. The one on the left, I have 6 apparatus in there that are frontline apparatus. They aren't reserved. They don't go out once every 6 months. No, they go out once a week. That's not representative of this community at all. And then it becomes, how do we sell this community to new employees? And we're showing them this. And they have to work in that. I think that's where we really need to have this done, this project needs, and it's one project. It's a big project.
Chief, if you have a fire alarm, your guys dress here and run over there
Yes.
in full equipment, right?
Yes.
What's the weight of that equipment? I remember you told me one time.
Yeah, just their, what we call their PPE, which is their fire gear, their boots and helmet and gloves, is about 35 to 40 pounds.
Running across that snow and icy park.
In addition, yeah.
Sounds like a workman's comp accident when you ever have one.
Well, and I talked to,
And you're exactly right. Unfortunately, I've worked for a department that it was a gamble. They ran the percentages. But you get one work comp injury, and this is nothing, this 45 million.
and I talked to one of the open houses we had a couple years ago, I guess it was pre-COVID, starting to talk about all this. And I talked to a couple of your guys, and you could see when they started talking about having to go over and grab apparatus over there, it weighs on them. They were talking about if there was a drowning situation,
Right.
to get ready here, go over, grab the trailer over there, and then go. And it's like, somebody's in the water.
Yeah.
And you could tell that it bothered them. You know, these are people that want to do good and save people. And then when you put things like this in their way, it weighs on them. So, right, it's you said peers. I'm going to say competitors. It's what our competitors around, because people, whether they want to work in this community or they want to live in this community or they want to invest in this community, they have other options around this. And I look at it as not as peers, I look at it as competitors, and that's something we need to be careful with.
I would say that,
I was just gonna say, I imagine that you'll, by having everything in-house, it's probably gonna shave probably at least a couple minutes off of response.
I hope so. I really do. And it's, that's one of the things that we're working toward. And that's what we're compared against is time.
I think we should be very grateful that something serious hasn't happened that would directly relate to that.
Want to make a comment on something Parker's saying? We do hear from families, and they're often very apologetic. They'll say it's nothing personal, but we go elsewhere. We go to Des Moines. We go to libraries that have things that you don't. And I think you all know every time you load the family up in the car, taking your business to Des Moines, even if it's to go out to the library, even go out to eat and all that kind of stuff. So we do hear that we lose out to our competitors.
It's just one of the many things that have been put off too long.
Thanks for depressing me too. Not to beat this dead horse, but the police portion of the building is completely non-functional. We have had a need for space since I got here in 1994 as the 13th officer. We're now authorized 24 in basically the same space. So we're crawling all over each other. Gwen stole my thunder, but right now our vehicles are stored behind Arby's there. That's where our police vehicles are when the guys and girls come to work. They either come here, they're switching a car, or they go to Arby's to pick up their car. Then they have to make their way back here. Then they have to have their shift brief. It's wasted time. Couple of the pictures. The one on the left is all of my supervisor's office. All three sergeants live, it looks like, in one room, amongst other things in there, because we're out of space. We have nowhere to house items. Those big boxes you see there are new tasers that came in that we're going to implement in a couple weeks, but we have nowhere else to put them. They can't have shift meetings in there. They can't speak privately because there's a lot of overlap on our shifts. So we could have two supervisors working once. Well, if they want to speak with one of their employees, they got to kick the other supervisor out. The other one, sorry, ladies, are both taken, is that's our workroom. That is the officer's workroom. 15 officers. If you're not a supervisor, those are your two workstations. Like I said, we have, I think, 15 patrol officers. We could have up to 7 working at a time with overlap. There could be, take a number to write your report. So that's what we're dealing with right now. I don't want to depress you anymore, but do you guys have any questions for me?
How easy is it to type in 35-degree weather?
It's well, okay. Jay's a big dude, right?
Right.
Okay. We have computers in our cars, but you got
No, I'm talking
30
about
pounds.
you in your office.
Oh yeah, no. Well, let me finish, Jay.
Is it cold?
We could do our reports in our car, but when you're wearing 25 pounds of equipment, a vest, you're sitting like this.
You're 6'7".
Well, no.
Well, you're not,
5'4".
obviously,
But yeah, to John's point is I dress for the inside weather, not the outside weather, because I never know. I always have my hat, my gloves, and my hoodie because I don't know what the temperature is going to be. I digress.
That's all that we have. So we're here to answer any more questions that you all have.
I know one of the things, because I've tried to reach out and not gotten to everybody yet, but I know I spoke with Glenn and I know one of the things that as we progress forward, I really think we probably need to nail down kind of some exterior concepts with kind of maybe some options for materials and stuff. Because I know that there are some concerns with putting, probably more so with City Hall or the administration / library, into a quasi-residential neighborhood or whatever, to make it where it's not something that sticks out, but yet we also be cognizant that we're wanting lots of glass and when you have those kinds of spaces, you do want open and airy and a lot of sunlight. So if we can come up with kind of ways and maybe some concepts of what that could look like to, go on. I know we can't get nailed down too tight, but if we can maybe even have that conversation amongst us too, as well, along with you guys could, because I know you guys have a lot of expertise you can bring forth kind of, I can see it in my head because I work around it a lot. I'm around with newer buildings, but maybe some people don't. And I think as we sell it, we probably definitely want to make sure we have that nailed down too. So.
I think that and the risk of our safety. I mean, obviously that's the number one thing, but John and I were talking about Des Moines Metro Opera building being 1 block away from the library city facility, and what a beautiful job that they did with that in blending the old and the new, and same with Simpson campus, a block away. So I think if we can do something that it maybe seems unimportant when you think about the safety issues that we really, those are the main issues, the concepts, the needs, that's the main issue. But if we want to sell it, I think the reality is that, based on what's happened recently, I think that's important to people. Unfortunately, they don't know that we go to Arby's, behind Arby's and across the street. And, hopefully at the end of this, they will understand the extreme safety needs. But I do think that while a small issue, it's important in making sure that it passes and that we can improve our city and not talk about this for 24 more years.
Has there been a lot of pushback from the community around the library?
I've not heard any.
I have not. I think if we do this right, I just think people need to understand what all the information that we've been given and understand the extreme needs.
I have heard just a lot of excitement. There's questions like parking, that's a big one, but we've got a plan. We'll keep working on that. But no, people are very excited. It really is, it's about time.
Money will be the big thing. I mean, after the courthouse and the streetscape and
And the high school has a big project coming
Right.
out.
That's their problem.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna even, you've got to put that part of it out there, because that's their job.
We
to sell
pay all
that.
the tax though, everybody.
Well, I get it, but
So-
that's something they've got to sell, and we've got to focus on what's best for the city. And
Absolutely.
I mean, when I
agree
was on
with
school
that.
board, I didn't worry about,
No.
you
We
can't,
haven't asked them to
so
put
I don't
things on
wanna.
hold either.
no, I think this project has to be, and the concepts are great. I think you guys have done a wonderful job exploring what the needs are and taking them forward so that we're prepared well into the future. I think the main thing is making sure people are informed of the high safety risks we have right now and doing something that people are going to be happy with, that, where parking isn't an issue and design is acceptable.
I think John and I've had this conversation last week too. But and Lynn, obviously, we've got to have some kind of and John at one point mentioned this, a design standard that shows what we're looking at here. And we have to have that as part of the public process here, because the biggest concern I heard on any of the projects, but mainly the square project, it was the design of the new administration of the new Justice Center not fitting in with the design of what's up there currently. And we've got to have, John and I talked about this last week, was some kind of a drawing or some kind of design that we as a council approve or say, okay, or move forward with. So that's part of the plan that we go out and sell to the community, because you can't sell people on a concept with the money and everything that's part of that. We have to have something solid that we can say, this is what it looks like. And I'm going to go one step further and say, I don't think it can be, something that is, I don't know how to put it, I guess, out there or something uniquely different. And I know there's a lot of designs that are out there today that are futuristic and things along that line. I think we've got to kind of look at what our community is and be very cognizant of that and not set something in the library position or portion and on our main highway that is something that's futuristic and idealistic. I think we have to have something that fits with what we have here. And so I think that's got to be probably for OPN. I think that's got to be, number one right now is get some drawings put together for what an exterior might look like. And you had one up there, I think, and maybe some other options, but I really do think we have to fit that in that area. The other thing, and back to what Michelle was talking about too, not only is it the parking, but in talking with some of the business owners on the square is, okay, if we don't have adequate parking at the administration library building and you use the parking lots that are currently available, then where do our customers park if the square is taken? Because we've taken some slots off the square. So we really do have to think very hard and strong about that parking issue. It has to be something that we have a pretty good plan in place of what we're going to do there. And Charlie, I'm glad you mentioned that around the parking area there too, because I think we have to look at that. We have to look at whatever good options we have available, whether it's both sides of the street, maybe taking parking on both sides of the street, or we do some things there, because I have had business owners, a couple of business owners ask me, if we do this, what are we going to park people? And will that impact their business? And so,
Well, and I would say on that, I mean, I agree that needs to be
Yeah.
addressed. I mean, Simpson is congested, the courthouse, the annex building, and I agree, we need to address that, but it can't stand in the way. And we need
Not
to
already
make
in that.
sure, no, I know you're not. I just think we need to make sure that that problem is solved,
absolutely.
that it
Questions
doesn't
answered.
stand in our way, and that we move forward and get this project done. I mean, I don't know how people sleep at night.
Well,
Really,
I
mean, they
understand
have to
that.
be done.
But I just want to make sure that and I agree with you wholeheartedly what you said, and I'm going to rephrase it just a little bit differently, in that we have to have those issues addressed before we go out to the public, full-fledged, full bore, and talk about this. So those things have to be addressed.
I'm gonna push back a little bit on the parking issue on the square, because we'll have adequate parking around the square. And we've said that all along. The problem is that these projects have been in such a way that, and so what I have of knowledge and what some people have in public as their perception are two different things. And once everything is done up there, we'll have more than enough adequate parking on the square. And so
I agree.
while I agree with you, it needs to be dealt with in the public as far as discussion, but just understand that. I mean, we've studied multiple times and we have plenty. And so I agree that we want to make sure we have plenty, but from my understanding, it sounds like they've got a plan and I know that the church Monday night was busy, but like I said, that gives us an opening there too. And I think you look during the day, the city staff will be parking over there, but here you've got city staff parking in a lot along with DOT, and you got also parking with the police and their employees. And so I think by the time you break these apart, you're gonna, I think be cognizant of it, but like I said, I want to make sure we don't get hung up on shutting everything down because of some parking.
That's my point
That's a
too.
personal.
I don't want to get hung up on it, and I agree. And I think a lot of the banter is because we are doing this in parts, so there's limited parking temporarily in some areas, and I don't want that to be a stumbling block.
And I wholeheartedly agree, but we do need to just have a response to that, and that was my point. We
If we're
just
growing
need-
17 spots, I mean, if we're growing 17 spots to the current existing, I mean, those 17 spots would probably likely be for staff, but it is good to see they're growing the parking. Because Michelle, is your parking lot pretty full? I mean, you've got 23 currently.
Sometimes, depends on what's going on, story time, yeah. So if you have a big event,
Where's the staff park now?
we park at the end of the lot right now.
Okay.
And again, I'm not holding that as a stick to hold anything up. I'm just saying that those are things that I have heard on the square and talking with folks. And again, if we can answer those questions for people, then that gets them on board.
And I could just back up to it with the user group meetings that we had. I know there was a few meetings that we talked about that for an hour one day, just kind of going over some parking options and what we could do different. So we have been talking.
Well, I'm sure you have.
No, yeah.
And we're trying to get caught up. I
Yep.
understand that
Nope.
too. So it's just, I want to have answers for people when they ask those questions so that we can be positive in moving this forward. That's my point. And I don't care whether it's design or whether it's parking or whether it's, adequate locker space, room space, or whatever the case is. I just want to make sure we have answers. Money, yes. Well, that's Ron's answer.
you talked about, Charlie, you talked about community surveys. What was some of the feedback you received back from some of those? Was it sent out to everyone or was it?
I'll let somebody else take that, because
We worked very hard to get some of it out. So some of it was very targeted. We had, for example, different groups like the employees in the fire department, they had a subset in the library employees. So we had users. We worked to get Friends of the Library, Library Board on our side, and I'm sure that the police and fire did the same. And then we went out on the community. And I know from the library side, one of the things we worked very hard to get is try to get people who don't use the library to tell us what they want. So we did go out and try to, so everyone had an opportunity at some point to respond. So if you guys want to talk more about surveys.
Michelle, can I say something? It kind of goes back to Steve's point that one of the things that they pointed out was the look of the building. And so we've been very cognizant about that throughout this process, to like, really making sure that it fits in with the neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't want to do that.
No, I understand that. I
Can we
just
get that
want to make sure.
community
we-
survey?
Yeah, and that's why I was just asking them. And they said we had somewhere around 325, 350 responses to that. I think we do have a document that kind of summarizes all that. So we'll get that to you.
Well, and again, I think, the survey is great and the tour of the facilities is great, but if we really help people understand how at risk we are with our safety and what an inconvenience is and how, and as you said, Chief Chia, seconds matter.
Mhm.
I think it's a moot point in any kind of argument about, that's my point about parking and even, and design is kind of my thing. But again, it's a matter of life and death more than anything. It's.
Not arguing that. I don't know what the plan is for the public promotion of this, but I know with, not obviously Jackie could refer to this right away because I can't use my computer half the time, but I don't know if we can get somebody, I know we have a PR group, can we have somebody do a video that shows our guys actually dressing in the side over here and trying to run across the field or something and show some of the issues at the library, the packed space and the police department with the officers all crammed in together, and put it on YouTube, put it on our social media and all of those things, because I think those are things that we have to show that you're talking about, seconds of people's lives here, or you're talking about.
I don't want to use scare tactics and
It's
show
not.
the embarrassment of this, but on the other hand, we just have to recognize
Yeah.
that this is a must do. It's really not, we have to have a vote, but it has to happen.
And I think even through some of this too, we'll do more, public tours and everything. I think one of the biggest issues we dealt with when we were doing the tours is we were within the kind of heart of the pandemic, and
Right.
a lot of people still not comfortable to come into buildings and things like that. But as we're moving away from that, hopefully, I think, we'll kind of offer those again throughout this process. And there'll be a whole campaign that goes along with that, videos, things like that. So yeah, any suggestions that we have along the way, we'll definitely take a look at that. But I think that is a good idea.
I know that Chief Shear and I have spoken about bringing Rick Berger back, who has made some promo videos before, and kind of making a fun video, featuring our indoor water feature that leaks in the sergeant's office and supervisor's office, and he does a great way of bringing
In
those.
City Hall today,
Yeah.
It's kind of cold in here.
jumping
Yeah, it's usually
in between the
sweaty.
boiler
Say
and
right now, I'm excited.
temperatures that are 80, and 30, and then 80, and 30. It just.
So, just point of reference, Charlie, I want you to say this public. You and I talked about the bond referendum. Would have to be 2 questions once you talk to that.
Yeah, so the guidance that we've got from bond council on that is that if we do put the referendum forward, we cannot put them on as one joint referendum. That'd have to be one for the public safety building and then one for the joint library city hall building, since they are 2 separate properties that we're dealing with. So
I know last time that we talked about this, so we come up with like a plan B all. if
Not
budget
really.
doesn't go
I
through.
mean, that'll have to be done at some point, but I think most of our planning and effort has been on kind of getting to this point that we're at today. And, if we get to a bond referendum and, both of them fail, one of them fails, one of them passes, at that point, we've got to, start looking at some other options, and then we can put that information together pretty quick, I think, and present that to council. council, but again, right now, we're just kind of focusing on step one at this point.
Well, I have no problem at all taking issues, bond issues to the public to let them decide. I mean, we vote to take that to the public, but I think that they make the final decision here. And so I have no problem moving that forward if that's what we gotta do.
So at our next meeting, would Mike Maloney be here to go for more of the financial? Before we.
Yes.
It's here right now.
Yep.
But you'll
Lurking in the
present next
background there,
meeting,
but yeah, yep.
um,
So, yeah, before we get to actually passing the language and all of that, we want to go through kind of a full financial analysis with council and get you a good understanding of, what numbers we'll suggest, stuff like that, why we're suggesting it. So we don't want to totally inundate you with all that information yet this evening or totally inundate the public with that, but we are still working on some of that fine tuning and we'll be ready for the next meeting.
If that's the thing, maybe we could have a quick conversation with Ben on the phone about, I mean, it is gonna change a lot of our makeup of the city from a debt perspective, and so since that would be before he would come, we would maybe want to just run that by him, because it does kind of change a lot.
And I think too, make sure that we update some of the scenarios on what it would cost to house at a certain value, because I think obviously, housing values have gone up tremendously, and so we can make sure that we're not talking about $100,000 homes or $125,000 homes. It's unfortunately, it's got to get to a point where we're talking 200 or 250 and on. So.
Probably hard work on this.
Yep.
Anyone have any-
I'm just sitting here talking at this point. I can
Around
tell
here,
you
it's
that,
quiet, you gotta have a question. Well, it always will be a good one.
yes.
So
saving them.
I'm looking at the maps right now where the current city library sits. And there's pretty big green space at the end of that. So I'm assuming this new library city hall, it would take up pretty much that whole lot.
Yeah, there is some, yeah, there's some-
The north side.
So-
Green space is pretty big.
She's gonna bring it up.
Yeah.
There we go.
So we've got like this plaza location. So this is on the south side of the library right here. So there's still going to be some open space and kind of some gathering space that would be outdoor. But yeah, I mean, the building would take up more ground than the current one does for sure. Yes.
That's why I just didn't know if it would be square footage wise, if it would be like that whole length of the lot. I know you're still planning on having some green space.
Yeah, I mean, so this shows here kind of where the sidewalks are on that block right there. This is that alley that currently goes into where the drop off is right now. So that kind of shows you where the green space is around that, a lot more here on the south side, but
So essentially, the building would kind of move back to the north a little bit.
yeah.
Yeah, right now it's more in the middle.
Yeah.
It's gonna bring the green space to one side, yep.
And the south side would be more of the entrance then. Although that is kind of your main entrance right now, it's still a lot of people going through the east side, so.
Mostly south, yep. Right.
And stretching further west towards the parking lot.
Yes, through where that parking lot is right now.
Along
parking lot would
the
be
east
kind of in this
there,
area
where
there.
those trees are, is there any potential of doing any additional like pull-in parking spaces in there?
You're talking in this area right
Yeah.
here. Yeah, I mean, I think those are things that we can definitely look at rather than right now, we're showing these parallel parking spots in here. Could you do more angled? And I mean, they take up about double the size on that. That's something that we'll get at when we get to design. We could definitely look at options to create more in there, but we just have to see how that looks and play out. So, yeah. One of those things that you want to get some green space. You don't want to have all concrete within the thing you're looking at. So we just kind of got to balance that.
I can't bear it in dark, to be
I
honest.
just imagine
I'll-
those
I'll
big
give you
trees would be
lessons.
coming
I'm
out
gonna need a
anyway
card.
Yeah.
because of the construction, so.
I'll teach you. I just,
There was some talk though, I don't know, try and keep them, even though they've been a long time, but
Yeah.
doing them.
They're
We don't
sycamore
wanna
trees,
take-
aren't they?
we don't want to take down trees.
I
if we
will.
don't-
Yeah, we don't want to take them down. We don't.
Yeah, sycamore, yeah.
Run. Questions? Anyone in the
Okay,
crowd?
thank you.
Well, thank you for all that hard work. Thanks. Appreciate it. to adjourn, do we?
No.
No, all
You
right,
can
we're
actually
done.
stop this meeting.
Yeah, you know what? You guys aren't gonna wanna let me come back for a 4-minute meeting.
Well, you were here at the beginning. I think there were at least 6 or 7 comments about the length of the meeting. so
Yeah.
He was under pressure. Yeah.